financial journalist and wealth editor with the Australian newspaper, James Kirby. James, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We've had confirmation today from the Treasurer Jim Chalmers. We're heading towards this surplus today, the first time in 15 years. The opposition saying this could have been done by anyone, not so big a deal. What do you think? How significant is that?
Hi, Ash. Well, look, it's a surplus. And it hasn't been managed for quite a long time, so it's going to go down on the record. And I think that whatever else, the public will remember it. They will remember that this Treasurer came in with a surplus. His first budget, his first real budget, was a surplus. So to that extent, people like to see good housekeeping, if you like, in national accounts, and there it is. So whatever way you slice or dice it, it's a surplus, and it will be, I think, imprinted on the public imagination for a while.
James, you spent a lot of your time writing and analysing superannuation. We've already seen changes to super announced, of course, but sometimes the devil's in the detail. What sort of detail will you be looking for on that front in the budget papers tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that goes for the entire budget. I mean, what we've seen so far, of course, is what the government is giving away. So we'll have to figure out, like, what's it going to take? And that's, of course, in the budget papers, buried in the budget papers invariably, and not in press releases or whatever. So even in this, say, in this inside the world of super, there's a whole pile of issues. For instance, like because we have inflation that's quite strong, we should have a indexing of the amount that you can have in super that is tax-free, that earnings are tax-free upon it. And that currently, the limit of that is 1.7. Now, on the inflation numbers we have, the analysts tell us that that should be adjusted or indexed, and it should be indexed up to about 1.9. So that's the first thing I sort of would be looking for tonight. Is that going through? I assume it goes through, but the Treasurer could, if he wanted to, he could freeze that. There have been freezes to this sort of thing before. It's been done in the past. It was done by Tony Abbott in the past. That's a sort of ongoing issue with super. And the big one is the new super tax, which is 15% on top of the existing 15%. Brings it up to an effective 30% tax when you're over 3 million. How will that actually be done? There's all sorts of issues around it. It's supposed to be on unrealised gains, which is completely out of the box from an accounting point of view, unprecedented really, could be a lot of trouble. Will people overseas be asked to contribute to this? Because technically, under the way that law was written, we need some clarification there. If you got an insurance payout, if you got a disability payout, insurance, and you brought yourself into that band, would you actually have to pay that 30% tax? So there's all sorts of details we really would like to see clarified this evening by the Treasurer. That's on super, just alone on super. Other things on property and rent, of course, the rent crisis that we have. What are they doing for housing? And some interesting, I think some really interesting movement in the numbers around assumptions for the iron ore price, which is really important to everybody, investors, but also to the budget itself and the outlook, the forward estimates.
Just picking up on the point you made about housing there, we have had plenty of hints from the government about rent relief coming our way this evening. What is your expectation about how that's going to look, and what will property investors be keen to see in those papers on that front?
Well, investors will be keen to see what on earth they're talking about. There's been a lot of talk about rent relief. There was the National Cabinet where there was supposed to be some improvement around housing supply. I mean, it's a difficult issue, obviously, and it's very hard to get all the states to agree to something. But there are avenues here, and we're just really interested to see what do they do on this one. Because obviously, we've got nearly 2 million people who own investment properties. In fact, the majority of rental properties in Australia are owned by investors. So they want to know, well, what's going on here? If there is rent relief, what is it specifically, and how would it work? And then how would that affect the market or the way the market works? Would it improve the rental situation? Very hard to change that situation in a short time. They've also pre-announced some changes on build to rent. Build to rent is very much a new movement here, but in the fullness of time, it could be very important. And there is some tax changes, improvements, if you like, for developers in that space. So that will be good. And hopefully that will be taken up as fast as possible. Also again, there's been talk about impact investing, that they would do something for that, but we've yet to see specifically what it might be. So I think on the housing front, Ash, and rentals, we really want to see what precisely, if anything, is being proposed or will come through in the budget papers.
James Kirby, really appreciate you making the time. Thank you. We all look forward to reading your budget coverage and analysis. Our viewers can do that at theaustralian.com.au, and there's going to be a special 16-page lift-out, as I understand it, in tomorrow's paper. So we'll all look forward to that. James, thank you.
Thank you.